It's 1 o'clock GMT. Hello, I'm Sasha Twining, and this is Business Matters on the BBC World Service. We're connecting the time zones, and today we're live in Vietnam, Canada, and here in London, UK. Coming up, President-elect Joe Biden tries to set the tone as America approaches Thanksgiving.
It's been a really hard year, particularly hard for over 250,000 people and their families. But I still believe we have much to be thankful for. There's so much to hope for, much to build on, much to dream of.
We'll hear from retailers who are hoping that Black Friday that comes just after will give them the boost they need. We'll discuss consumer confidence in different countries. Plus, how making the vaccine may be just half of the story, as the cold storage experts tell us of the challenges they're going to have in delivering it. That's Business Matters here on the BBC.
Hello, this is Danielle Jałowiecka with the BBC News. Argentina has been plunged into mourning by the death of arguably its most famous son, the football legend Diego Maradona. People have come out onto the streets to express their grief at the loss of the star, whose sublime performances secured victory in the 1986 World Cup. President Alberto Fernandez has declared 3 days of national mourning, saying Maradona had taken Argentina to the top of the world. His popularity and influence spread right across the continent, as the BBC's Tim Vickery explains.
Maradona is perhaps the most perfect encapsulation of the history of South American football. The game is introduced by the British, especially. It's reinterpreted by the locals, ideal for those of a low centre of gravity. And that reinterpretation leads to international triumphs and international recognition for a region of the world that is starved of those things. So Maradona, a mixture of Italian immigrants and indigenous, born on the wrong side of the tracks. It's a story that it's so easy for other South Americans to relate to.
President Trump has granted a full pardon to his former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. General Flynn served 3 weeks in office at the start of the Trump administration before pleading guilty to lying to the FBI during the investigation into Russian election interference. Nomia Iqbal is in Washington.
Michael Flynn's legal troubles began during the 2016 presidential transition. He had conversations with the then Russian ambassador about sanctions and then lied about those contacts in interviews with the FBI. He later admitted what he'd done as part of a plea deal with the special counsel Robert Mueller, who investigated claims of Russian influence on Mr. Trump's election victory. Earlier this year, after delays in his sentencing, Flynn and his new legal team had been trying to withdraw his guilty plea.
President-elect Joe Biden has used a televised address on the eve of Thanksgiving to urge Americans to recommit to the fight against coronavirus. Mr. Biden said a grim season of division would give way to light and unity, and he urged people to refrain from high-risk holiday activities as cases of the virus continue to surge in the US.
This year we're asking Americans to forego so many of the traditions that we've long made this holiday, which made it so special. For our families, we've had a tradition of traveling over Thanksgiving. But this year, we'll be staying home. We've always had big family gatherings at Thanksgiving. Kids, grandkids, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. But this year, because we care so much for each other, we're going to be having a separate Thanksgiving.
You're listening to the World News from the BBC. The last democratically elected Prime Minister of Sudan, Sadiq al-Mahdi, has died from coronavirus at the age of 84. He had been receiving treatment in the United Arab Emirates since the beginning of November. The opposition Ummah Party, which Sadiq al-Mahdi led, offered condolences to the Sudanese people. Sadiq al-Mahdi was overthrown in 1989 in a military coup that brought the former President Omar al-Bashir to power. A deadline for Tigrayan forces to surrender in northern Ethiopia has expired, with federal and other troops poised to attack the regional capital Mekelle. African Union envoys have travelled to Addis Ababa, but Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has rejected efforts to halt the conflict. Kalkadan Yebeltal is in Addis Ababa.
The government has said that it's going to attack the city of Mekelle. That's the only major city that the government says that it's not controlling right now, and where the top leadership of the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, the TPLF, are believed to be. We are anticipating some sort of conflict, but at this exact moment, all we know is that the ultimatum given by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has expired, and the top leadership of the TPLF have rejected calls for peaceful surrender.
Officials in Burkina Faso say at least 5 armed civilians helping the security forces fight Islamist militants have been killed in the north of the country. Several other members of the Volunteers for the Defence of the Nation are missing following the raid on a small gold mine. The World Health Organization is urging people to stay active during the coronavirus pandemic. The WHO says there is a risk of creating another pandemic of ill health resulting from sedentary behaviour. It says lockdown and other COVID restrictions are disrupting normal exercise routines, but that even before the crisis, data showed most young people and many adults were too inactive. BBC News.
Hello and welcome to Business Matters. I'm Sasha Twining. On the programme today, we're going to talk consumer confidence. It's facing its biggest test with the annual shopping fest of Black Friday fast approaching. How do shoppers feel about spending the cash right now? Plus, we'll hear from President-elect Joe Biden as America encourages those celebrating Thanksgiving to stay at home. Also on the programme, how useful is a vaccine if you've not got the fridges and the dry ice ready to transport it? We'll hear of the difficulties in delivering the billions of doses needed. Plus, we'll also hear how Argentina is mourning a man who dominated their sporting world.
It's rare in the history of the sort of football's top tournament to have a player that basically not only personified the tournament but absolutely dominated it. And that spoke to his genius as a player and his personality.
There's more on the death of Maradona a little later in the programme. And as always, I'm going to be joined by my 2 guests. Today we have Ralph Silver, the writer and broadcaster who joins us from Toronto in Canada. Hello, Ralph. Good evening.
Good evening.
Lovely to have you on the programme again. And also joining us, Lian Huang, who is joining us from Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. Hello, good morning, Lian.
Hi, good morning.
And very good to have you with us as well. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your opinions as we go through the programme. Now, if you're listening to us right now in America, you may be in the last stages of preparing your Thanksgiving. So if you are, maybe we wish you a very happy one. Thursday is, of course, the start of a 4-day holiday for many people across North America. But, of course, this year it is very different. President-elect Joe Biden used a televised address just a couple of hours ago to urge Americans to recommit to the fight against coronavirus. He told them his family would be staying at home and a grim season of division would give way to light and unity. Well, this is what he then pledged.
Starting on day 1 of my presidency, we will take steps that will change the course of this disease. More testing will find people with cases and get them away from one another, slowing the number of infections. More protective gear for businesses and our schools to do the same, reducing the number of cases. Clear guidance will get more businesses and more schools open. We all have a role to play in beating this crisis. The federal government has vast powers to combat the virus. And I commit to you, I will use all of those powers to lead a national coordinated response. But the federal government can't do this alone. Each of us has a responsibility in our own lives to do what we can do to slow the virus.
Well, as we were hearing on the programme yesterday, if you were with us for that, around 1 million Americans are believed to have travelled every day of this week to see friends or family for the holiday, despite the warnings. And of course, Thanksgiving is also traditionally the start of the critical festive shopping season for retailers. You have Black Friday at the end of the week and then Cyber Monday, when store chains in the US and plenty of other countries too offer steep discounts to kickstart their most important trading period. So what will it be like this year? Will those that do have the cash be happy to splash it? And will it be enough for struggling retailers desperate to get the tills ringing? What will shopping this Black Friday really look like? Well, the BBC's Michelle Fleury is in New York and she's been finding out what it might turn out to be. And her report starts with a trip down memory lane.
Bedlam in the aisles of some of the nation's biggest retailers.
Black Friday shopping mania.
Millions of Americans hit the malls.
Tonight, those doorbuster deals at times creating chaos.
The Friday after Thanksgiving, typically the busiest shopping day in America. Synonymous with large crowds and chaotic scenes, it is the polar opposite of social distancing. And with US health officials urging people to skip this particular holiday tradition, it will look different.
You know, it's crazy this year.
Despite the early bargains on offer, there was precious little festive cheer among shoppers at the Fulton Street Mall in Brooklyn.
I think it'll be a lot of gift cards and mailing it. Honestly, because you can't really go by anyone and it's not really like great this time of the year. It's not really great. I don't feel like it's Christmas. I don't feel like it's Thanksgiving. Because you can't celebrate it with people you love.
I'm hearing that the coronavirus has spiked a little bit. So I have to be careful.
So does that mean you just do everything online or you're just saving your money and not shopping?
Well, I plan on shopping online for my granddaughters. And basically, I have no intention of going to none of the stores.
The pandemic isn't just changing people's shopping habits, it has devastated the economy. A number of well-known retailers have shut their doors for good. Stimulus cash from the government last spring is exhausted, and many Americans are struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah, because there's not that much money, so everything's limited.
Because of job situation, because of the economy?
Jobs, economy, so yeah.
What about the fact that stores are already doing deals earlier? I guess it doesn't make a difference if you've got no money.
Yeah, because it's like 50% off, but if it's 50% off if you have nothing, it's not doing anything for you.
You know, Woods Grove is our baby. I would say 99% of our store is gifts and cards and vintage and furniture.
Can you give me a tour?
Sure, I'd love to. Welcome on in.
Like the big chains, many small retailers are changing how they operate to try to survive. So as I walk into the store, what has changed since the coronavirus?
Since coronavirus, you'll see that at the front door, we have signs that require everyone to wear a face mask when they come in. We also have hand sanitizer at the front door, as well as stations throughout the store, just so customers feel comfortable after touching something or shopping. And people are really nice. They just come right in and automatically sanitize their hands, which is wonderful.
When the pandemic first hit, Robbie Schnall had to close his shop. To pull through, he and his business partner, Chris, went online.
During the first pandemic round, we were down 80 to 90%. So we were really struggling and floundering, and what kept us alive was that little bit of e-commerce business, and that was great.
Enough to make your business sustainable?
Yes. We have a theory that we're seeing a large amount of customers who are working from home and want to get out of the house during the day, and we're seeing a lot of business during the week with customers looking to get out, take a break from work, and shopping during the day.
Now Woods Grove is back open and is doing great. But Robbie is preparing for the unexpected this holiday shopping season.
COVID had been kept at a sustainable level, and with it coming back, it makes us a little fearful that we'll be shut again.
Despite the uncertainties, expect some familiar sights as retailers try to pull out all the stops to make sure this holiday season isn't their last.
Michelle Fleury in New York. Well, Black Friday may have been an American invention, but it's since been adopted with glee by retailers around the world.
Gymshark's Black Friday is coming early this year, causing a sensation now known as Big Deal Energy.
Black Friday Media Markt. Smart TV QLED Samsung de 55 polegadas por €699.
The world's biggest sales promotion just got bigger. ShopRite brings you the biggest sales promotion of the year with not just 1, but 5 days of Black Friday.
Well, just a flavour of the sort of marketing that you might be either enjoying or enduring right now. Ads there from the UK, Portugal and Nigeria. In France, the government has ordered Black Friday to be delayed by a week this year until December the 4th. And the idea there is to make it easier for shops that are forced to close by the French lockdown to compete with online giants like Amazon. So they've delayed it so that it starts when those shops have been able to reopen. So what does all this mean for consumer confidence? Is this a test for it, or actually an indication of how different countries are dealing with the pandemic and how shoppers are feeling about the future? I'll discuss this with my guests, Leon and Ralph, in just a moment. First, at 1:15, let's get the latest news headlines with Danielle Yarowiecka.
Crowds have taken to the streets in Argentina to mourn the death of Diego Maradona, the football star whose sublime skills and personal struggles captivated the world. President Trump has pardoned his former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who was convicted of lying to the FBI during the Russia investigation. In a Thanksgiving message, President-elect Joe Biden has urged Americans to end a grim season of division and unite to fight coronavirus. And an Australian academic convicted after spying in Iran has spoken of her relief after she was released in an apparent prisoner exchange.
Danielle, thank you very much. Right, let's talk consumer confidence as we look ahead to Black Friday and indeed Cyber Monday. What is this year going to be like, and have our shopping habits changed? Let's get the view of my guests on this one. We've got Leon Huang, who's in Vietnam, Ralph Silver, who's in Canada. First of all, let me just ask you both first, just so that we can get a flavour of where you both sit on this one. Will you be going out to spend money on Black Friday promotions this year? Leon, let me come to you first on this one. Will you be splashing the cash?
I don't think I will be, but Vietnamese already are. Even last week when I was walking around a mall, the sales had already started and the shops were pretty crowded.
Okay, so your fellow country people certainly are. They're getting out there. What about you, Ralph? Will you be?
Absolutely. We've been putting a list together of things that we need that we haven't shopped for in quite a while in anticipation of the actual reductions. Here in Canada, it is a very, very big shopping deal. The discounts are enormous, and we've actually prepared for this particular period of the year.
So, Ralph, are you anticipating spending the same sort of level and on the same sort of goods as you have done before?
Oh, yeah, no, by no means. There's certain things that we haven't bought in quite some time, like just clothing. We've bought track pants because we're stuck at home, so we don't have to buy trainers. We don't have to buy, formal things for work and things like that. So, yes, our habits have changed. We still refuse to go out into shops because, especially here in Canada, we have seen an uptick in corona. So we're shopping everything online. Amazon has most certainly become very, very rich due to this, and it is the safe option for us, and we intend to take advantage of it.
Okay, so it is a big deal in the Silver household then. So, Leanne, you said that people are already out shopping. So is it an extended period then? It's not just on the Black Friday day then?
That's right. It gets bigger and bigger every year. And even this morning, I was driving around on my motorbike, and I was surprised to see that it's not just retailers. I passed by a pharmacy and even a pizza restaurant that hung out big Black Friday signs. So everyone's kind of taking advantage of this moment to draw in customers. And it even comes from the top down, from the government, that they've been supporting these campaigns to get more people out shopping, including on days like Black Friday and Singles Day earlier this month.
Oh, of course, yes, straight off the back of that other huge shopping day. So what is consumer confidence like then in Vietnam?
It's interesting, actually. It's usually pretty high every year. A few months ago, it did take a huge dip to its lowest level in maybe 20 years, maybe longer, just because the economy depends so much on exports. And so if Vietnamese are not making income from exports, then they're not shopping here at home. And so consumer confidence was quite low. But it's definitely coming back, and the economy is recovering a lot faster than in most other places.
Yeah, I think that is very noticeable, actually, when you look at your figures and the predictions ahead are very, very different figures to what we've seen in different parts of the world at the moment. So, Ralph, when you listen to Leon saying that sort of thing and you're sitting there in Toronto, tell me how you perceive consumer confidence to be there.
It's improving. It's definitely improving. We are looking towards the end of this process. I think we can safely say that in the past 2 weeks, there's been an increased level of optimism. All these reports about vaccines in their last or their final stages of development have made us all feel much more comfortable in the fact that this is going to go away. We have had a lockdown, but we also feel that it is going to be the last lockdown, so confidence is going up. And lastly, and this is really important, is we're going into winter. There are certain things you absolutely need when you're going into winter. You need warm socks, as an example. You need sweaters. So you just can't put those types of things off. So it is the time where you have to go out and purchase those things.
Hang on, you're not reusing last winter's?
Well, you wear them a lot, you wear them out.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not gonna push you on your habits for what you put on your feet, Ralph. Is very interesting though to hear the two different points of view from you both tonight. Now, tech products are often ones that are marked down and offered as bargains on Black Friday, but this year the French government wants to get its money's worth out of the big digital firms. Now, we've talked before about this tax, the digital tax that they want to levy on the profits mainly of Silicon Valley giants like Facebook and Amazon. And the aim is to address complaints that multinational tech firms pay too little tax on the money that they make from right around the world. Washington, however, believes that the tax unfairly singles out American companies. Well, the imposition of the tax had been suspended while the OECD, that's the Paris-based Organisation of Wealthy Nations, tried to find a solution. But now the French Finance Ministry has decided to go ahead with it anyway from next month. Here's Victor Mallet. He's the Paris bureau chief for the Financial Times, speaking to my colleague Mike Johnson.
It's fairly straightforward from the French point of view. They've sent out tax notices to collect 2020 tax, which is their digital services tax that they said they would impose, and they are just collecting the tax. The payments were supposed to have been made in two parts earlier in the year, but that was suspended during negotiations with the US in the hope that there could be some kind of multinational solution worked out at the OECD. But that hasn't gone anywhere very much. So the French have done what they said they were going to do, which is to carry on imposing this tax on companies like Facebook, Amazon and Google.
So this is France saying we don't think those talks are going anywhere to find some sort of global solution, and we're going to press ahead and send out some tax demands.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they've been saying for more than a year now, and they are fulfilling it. In fact, the companies have already paid this tax for 2019. It's not the first time that they're paying this tax. And it's important to note that this is not just France. France happens to be the country that has actually gone ahead and actually started getting companies to pay the tax. It's a tax on turnover. But many other European countries and countries around the world have plans for a similar digital services tax, because these big companies that are tech companies, they are not seen to be paying a fair amount of corporate tax in the countries where they do a very large part of their business and make very large profits. And this is really a sort of global problem. And in the OECD, there is a kind of attempt to modernize the world's tax systems by international agreement. And the problem is that hasn't made much progress, and therefore these national taxes are going ahead.
Could there be retaliation from the United States? There's talk about new tariffs on the import of French products, possibly?
Yes, I mean, the US argument is that this unfairly targets American companies, and it's true that most of the big tech companies are indeed American. They have threatened for quite some time now fairly substantial sort of tariff retaliation against France and against other countries that are planning this type of digital service tax. And the latest threat is that the US Trade Representative's office is talking about putting tariffs of 25% on $1.3 billion worth of French handbags flag and makeup exports to the US. That hasn't actually been imposed yet, but it's certainly seen as potentially imminent.
So in the meantime, what will happen? Do you think Facebook, Amazon and co will just ignore these demands for payment, or will they pay up?
No, I think they'll pay up. It's a tax which they owe in the country where they're doing business, and they will pay it. Obviously, they have been lobbying extremely hard, particularly in Washington, D.C., with both the outgoing Trump administration and the incoming Biden administration. They really don't want this tax.
Victor Mallet, Paris Bureau Chief for the Financial Times, speaking a little earlier. Let's get the view of my guests on this one. Leanne, let me come to you first in Vietnam. What's happening there? Is there anything being proposed of how to deal with this, what is a global issue?
Yes, this is extremely relevant for Vietnam, and the timing as well is amazing, because Vietnam is definitely watching developments like this between France and the US, because it's working on its own tax for technology companies. And there's actually a new decree from the government to take effect next month that asks banks actually to withhold some of these taxes when there's a transaction between a Vietnamese entity and a qualifying technology company. And so Vietnam is getting very directly involved in this topic.
And putting the banks right in the middle of it. A few questions on that. First of all, what's the public opinion on it? Is this a big issue? Are the big tech giants seen as, needing to pay their fair share?
It's a mix of public opinion, because on one side, Vietnamese do feel that these companies need to pay their fair share of taxes. The reasoning is, if you're Facebook or YouTube and you're collecting advertising money by advertising to Vietnamese, then you should be paying the Vietnamese authorities. At the same time, the tax is also affecting Vietnamese themselves, because it's not just about the companies making money from customers here directly, but also Vietnamese merchants who use Facebook and other foreign technology platforms to sell their goods. And they're also expected to pay tax under this regime. And so they're a bit worried about how the changes will affect them.
And it's just automatically coming in from next month then. Ralph, let me come to you on this one. This is an issue that we've talked about before in the past. I mean, what do you make of the proposals, well, more than proposals, what's going to happen in Vietnam from next month?
I think that it was inevitable. And there's a very simple reason for that, is governments around the world have spent enormous amounts of money on the COVID response. Those coffers have to be refilled. And the reality is that if you go after these massively profitable organizations, you're not going to lose any votes. And that's why it's going to be the first, or the low-hanging fruit. So we're going to see taxation for global companies go up. We're going to see domestic taxation for companies go up. The last thing we're going to see is taxation for individuals. So it makes a lot of sense. Yes, the politics are going to get involved, but the reality is that these organizations can afford it. They will pay if they are asked to pay. And the countries, all the countries around the world could use that money.
Leanne, is that what it is? It's easy pickings.
That's a part of it, but this debate has been going on in Vietnam for years, and they watch these topics emerging, like I said, between France and the US and other places, and they find it a little strange that it's become a political issue, because it's not specifically about taxing foreigners, at least in Vietnam. It's about taxing these new forms of business. And so their rationale is, if you're Netflix and you have Vietnamese customers, then why would you not pay to the authorities here?
Looking at a different tax infrastructure for a very different way of working. Really interesting to hear the views of both my guests, Leanne Huang and Ralph Silver. More from Business Matters coming up in a moment.